All right, so welcome everybody to the April koha-US sysadmin SIG. We're going to talk about sysadmin stuff. So does anybody have questions or things they want to talk about? I see Bruce does.
Simple question. I upgraded from Debian 9 to 10 and Koha 21.5 to 21.11, and the virtual machine's running and Koha will not. I've tried a bunch of suggestions from people and none of them work. So I'm dead in the water.
It's too bad Fred isn't here today, because he's got a lot of experience with Koha not working.
Yes.
But you know, this is exactly why we pay a support company, so that I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. So I'm not any help at all in this.
The annual fees for support are higher than my organization's annual budget, so that's not an option for me.
Yeah, and I don't have any experience.
Idea the sorts of things that might have crashed?
So your operating system is working fine. It's just Koha that isn't. Yeah, I honestly don't have any ideas.
Other than, I assume you've already reached out to the list and that sort of thing, right?
I haven't reached out to the admin list yet, but that's the next task.
I would go ahead and like put out all your information on just the general Koha list and see if anybody has any ideas.
Okay. Is that failing that, the next step is to buy some more storage on the server and make a fresh install. Then I'll be back to ask how to transfer the data.
I bet Fred can help with that too. Yeah, sorry, we're not at that level of this admin, I don't think.
That's okay.
But I will put this out there. Anybody watching the recording, if you're having similar experiences to Bruce or you've been through that, please reach out to him and see if you can help.
Okay. Well, that was quick.
Yeah, you want to tell everybody on YouTube what your phone number is so they can call and give you any advice?
No, please don't. I don't want to have to edit that out.
The society decided to unplug the phone last month, so that I'm safe from that now. Says something about how close we're running to the financial limits. Okay, somebody else's problem next.
Okay, I've got one that has to do with two system preferences that in the manual, it says don't turn both of them on, but I need both of them on because I am a consortium and one half needs the control number and the other half is basically using EasyAnalytics. So I'm going to share my screen because I don't know how else to, here we go. Okay. So to show you what is happening, if you turn on the system preference, easy analytical entries, notice I get items over here. With that system preference turned off, it looks like this. Because they're not real items, they're there because of the 773 Easy Analytical link. My problem, so that's the problem with having it on. My problem is I have a lot of libraries that use the control number for the linking fields. And the only way that you can have a linking field in the 776, 775, 4, there's a whole list of them, you have to have control number turned on. That system preference has to be on for the control fields to work. My problem is I have one library that basically created like a journal index. And so they need the UseAnalytics turned on so that they can see the volume and item information associated with that article title. So the manual says, do not use both of these at the same time. I want to know why, like, why can I, like, what will it do? Can I leave them both on? Does anyone else have this problem? Or have solutions for me?
Is there a hard analytics function?
It's two system preferences, use control number and show EasyAnalytics. And they say don't, so if you use the control number, the manual says don't show EasyAnalytics. If you show EasyAnalytics, it says do not use control number. But I need both because I'm a consortium. Though I can also see me needing both for certain libraries because they want to create a journal index and they would have all these, invisible items that only show up with show EasyAnalytics, but they also want to use the 776 for different formats so that the online record's connected to the print record. And they want that to display correctly, so they have to use the control number for that to work.
So you have them both on right now.
So our workaround, because when we upgraded, our IT is like, don't do that. So our live site has use control numbers. Our QA has show EasyAnalytics. So that one library that uses them, or like, okay, if you really need them, go to the replica. The good news is right now it's a library in Chad, and right now there's no one at the library. Everyone is out in the field because it's not raining and they can do their linguistic work. But in August, I have to have a solution because they all come back and they're going to be using the library. So I'm trying to figure out like how do I solve this problem?
I'm looking at the manual here for the use control number instructions, and it says that if you don't use the control number, then when you click on a link in a title where it's that control number that's using a continues or continued by, when you click on that, Koha will do a title search instead of searching by the control number. And it actually recommends what it says, unless you are manually changing the 773W rigorously and making sure that those control numbers are absolutely correct and up to date, you shouldn't use this anyway, because it's, you're hard coding that relationship in. And so unless you're really on top of it, it says it's better to just do a title search when you have those fields, that when you have those URLs that are built by use or don't use. So I'm not sure what the downside would be. What's the upside to using the control number?
It goes to a specific record. So for a consortium,
right,
it goes to the Chad library instead of the Manila library.
Okay.
I can tell it. So what's also happening with EasyAnalytics, the name of that journal could have like 500 records attached to it. So if you do a title search, they all show up. And if more than one library decided to index, which I think possibly could have happened, you now have a whole lot of records that you have to sort through to figure out, versus if you use the control number. And I am going through, like I'm using MarcEdit to put in the biblionumber as the control number. I am moving that 7730 field to the W so that it will work. And then I've created little kind of cheat sheets for local libraries of how to put in the control number. It's not that hard.
Mhm.
The EasyAnalytics really is, you want it for if you're kind of doing an index of sort, because you're needing the items to show up. Which is a special case of control, like you're needing the item to show up in both places. All the other fields, it doesn't matter because you have a physical print item and a physical CD item, and so the item record is there and it would both show up. It functions correctly. It's the ones where there is no item because it's an article inside of a book or inside of a journal. With Show EasyAnalytics, it'll show it in both places. With Don't Show, it's only on the record where the item is. And I'm finding out that for some journals, the items are on the article records. And so then the journal record is empty. And then for other journals, all of the items are on the journal record. And the article are empty. And in some ways, I'm needing them in both places because they need to know the volume information. They need to know the barcode of where to find this article inside the journal.
So Lauren, this is going way back from my cataloging days. They're not using like parent-child record in Koha?
So some of this is way back when Koha wouldn't, like, you could only use EasyAnalytics. So some of this it was inherited. That was the only way you could do, all of your links could only be done that way. So now I'm going through and like separating them into the correct field because the field that you use changes the text. It'll say so like for the 773, it'll show in or the title, which I'm slowly learning, and I have to fix all of those. That's a different issue. But like the 776, it'll say different format. And if you use that field, if you put it in the 773, it'll say that it's in something, which it's not. It's a different format, or it's a different edition. We just added this, oh shoot, I can't remember the field for the edition, but we just figured out how to add that to where that field will work and display correctly. It's just the parent-child aspect. I am going to have to figure out how do I fix our current one so that they follow that relationship, because it's random, because no one knew and they just were like, okay, I'll do link to host on the record. And historically, it really didn't matter which one you were on when you linked it. This is they've made Koha so good that the way it used to operate, you have to change how you do things so that you can use the enhancements that you've been wanting for years.
They've stole our shortcuts.
Yes.
So way back when I was doing the child and parent record cataloging, we used the 856 to put in a link to the parent record and then create the child record of the article. And then whenever someone was looking for, they'd see the parent journal record, and then they click on the link to the child record that had the specific article that they were looking for in. Is that something does that kind of sound like what you're doing?
No, because we're using the 856 for actually online links, but whether or not we could use that field to also point to a record in Koha. That might work.
This was in Cersei, and it was in Symphony. So that's how we did it, but that was like 10, 15 years ago. So I'm not sure if it'll work in Koha, but
It would point to the record. What it wouldn't fix is I would still have all of the items would only show on one record instead of both. And it would be helpful if it showed up on both. Because the journal records really need like the list of, these are the volume information, the enumeration for the journal. The articles could do that in the record itself. It doesn't really need it in the item. Though
right.
that's another project. Because they weren't consistent. That item, that information is missing, and I am trying to figure out like how do I remove that easily? Because I can't. What I'm also running into, Koha will not let you export records without items unless you put it into a list first. I finally figured out how to get it into a list so that I could export those records because they have no items. The item is showing because of the information in the 773.
So there is a bug out there I put in the chat about these things shouldn't be mutually exclusive and you should be able to turn them both on at the same time. And then I see that Christie put some information from the wiki, why it doesn't work.
Okay.
Because having both on makes one break the other one back and forth, and it's all wonky. So there's a couple of wiki pages. There's also one linked up on that bug that talks about it. It sounds like it needs more work. That's my evaluation of the situation. I wonder, so you've only got one library, right? You said one library is causing the problem. From a consortial standpoint, is there a way you could like strong arm them into the other way so that then you have everybody on the same thing and you can just use one of the system preferences?
So there may be two. So right now I'm going through and like, okay, how are these being used? A lot of it, like before, every single link was using the 773 because the only way to make a link work was to do the link to host, to use EasyAnalytics. Control numbers were a new thing. So now I have a new library coming in going, I want to be able to link editions and formats. And I'm like, oh, I want to too, because it's clearer for the patron if it says a different format instead of in, So I'm cleaning that up. And we may move a journal index. And we're debating, like, should we just move the index to a separate koha? Like a separate instance. And you just go there to search for your journal titles so that all of the libraries can use them. And then, but the main koha, we don't do any kind of that type of indexing. Maybe.
I guess another option, like I know Bywater's done this for us before, where you can add some branch specificity to system preferences, like when you're logged in as that branch that needs the one thing, have certain system preferences, but I don't know if it would work in this situation, and I don't know how they do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if our IT would be, because yeah, we can't afford the support either. So
Yeah.
But that's an idea. Thank you. I'm the bug, I think, I kept trying to find a bug. I'm like, there's gotta be a bug on this. I can't be the only person.
Yeah, and looking at these wiki pages, it looks like there might be more bugs than just that one. So you might read through there and see if there's anything else. And like George said, comment on that bug for sure. And,
Okay.
like, I think it's always impactful if you like explain your situation in the bug, like why you need it, so that then other people can say, oh yeah, I need that too.
I tried pulling up the help screen on either of those preferences, and I can't find any information on either. Do you have specific links to that in the manual? Because I'm not seeing it.
All I know, I will put the two, those are the two preferences that it's in connection to. And there's not a lot of,
Right.
and I just stumbled across that the main difference is in how it displays the items is different. And then I can't totally tell about if it's using the title or the biblionumber, because we're not consistent. And so it's really like, it'll work on this record, but it won't work on that record. And I'm like, well, why does it work here and not there? And so I'm still, and it's because the librarian wasn't consistent, and probably wasn't done by one person. You know, it was this person did it this way, and then they retired, and someone came in and they're like, oh, let's do it this way. Or koha changed. I mean, how koha does even EasyAnalytics now is different. It functions differently than in some of those early versions of koha. Because I'm like, oh, okay, we can't even use EasyAnalytics the way we used to use it, because it doesn't function the same way. Like what you do, it won't do what it used to do. I think it's supposed to be better, but
That's the nature of koha and open source, right? Somebody adds a thing that they think that'll make it better, and that affects yours. So it's important to just like voice your opinion, say what's broken and what needs fixed. And when behaviors change, it's really important to get those like documented and reported, so that people realize, hey, you did break my workflow with that thing that you added that was supposed to make it better.
well, in this one, I think it's actually better. It's just, I've got to figure out what do I need to change in order to make it work. Or I'm needing both of them on at the same time.
My advice would be, pick the way that you want it to be done that's going to benefit the most people.
Yeah.
And tell the people that are doing it the other way that they need to start doing it the new way, and that you need to help them make the records that are the old way match the new way. And the easy way to do that is to, pick the way, set the preferences the way that you think they should be set. Yeah. And then set them that way and tell them that it's not going to work the other way anymore. And then move on from there. But then offer them the support that they need to make sure that it's going to work for them. Mm-hmm. That's from, the management side of things. But as far as why they work that way, I'm looking through it, and we don't use analytic records, and I'm looking through all this, and it's all reading it and listening to everybody talk in the background is not the best way to figure out how it works.
Yeah, I was looking at our system. We don't have it turned on at all either. I'm wondering, do other libraries, are there other systems that have it turned on? And I mean, I'm trying to understand it because I've never known about it.
It's
Prior
not a public library
this.
kind of thing is really
Yeah.
what it boils down to. It's,
I've tried to implement that, but I was never quite confident I had it right.
well, that certainly wouldn't stop me.
No, but a black screen of death does. On which point, if I can interject one last question. If I'm using packages, if I should remove Koha Common and reinstall it, would that wipe out my database?
I personally don't know.
I don't want to give you bad advice. I don't want to say no, well, and then your database disappears. I would
Well,
definitely make backups.
I got a backup, so I may just find out the hard way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know Fred just upgraded his to 2211. And I think he ran into some issues in that upgrade.
Excellent.
So
I'll contact
maybe reach
Fred.
out to him and see if you ran into the same issues. Because he solved his. He's on 2211. So that might work.
Just don't be surprised if the answer is in rhymed couplets.
Oh, I'm well familiar with Fred, and I can fight him toe to toe on that basis. Though I'm more likely to use limericks.
Hi, look, it's Andrew.
Hey, hi everybody. How's it going?
We're just talking about analytics and destroying Bruce's database and that sort of thing. So
Oh, that sounds fun.
Maybe Andrew can answer your question, Bruce. But only if you unmute yourself when you ask.
Good point. Andrew, I upgraded from 21.5 to 21.11, since I tend to live at old stable. And that required me to upgrade from Debian 9 to 10. When I came back, the Debian was running, my other apps on the server are running, but Koha is dead and can't be started. What I miss.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
That's pretty much my approach.
When you try to start it, does it do anything? Does it give any particular error message?
How does one restart?
See, that I only know in the context of like of Koha testing Docker, which is like a Dockerized, containerized version of Koha. So I don't
Yeah.
rightly know.
I've taken instructions from various lists and tried them all with no results.
You find another working system and get some jumper cables.
Yeah,
I
a little harder
know
to do
that-
with a virtual machine in Texas.
I know that the last few upgrades of Koha have added some pretty important Perl modules, and that would, like, off the top of my head, that would be my guess that Koha
They-
now requires some Perl module that you don't have on your server, but I don't have a good way of telling you how to figure out what it is or how to install it or
And app isn't showing me missing dependencies, so
Nothing in the logs.
nothing that makes any sense to me. Tell me which log, I'll give you the tail.
I'm sorry to not have wonderful news for you,
Yeah,
or even specific bad news.
you're in good company, sir.
Got that at least.
Well, it's only 6,000 items. I suppose I can enter them all again.
Yeah.
That's why you always export everything first.
If I could get it up, I would do that.
Oh, that's why you export before you do anything.
Yes. Yes, I'll remember that retroactively before my next crash.
I see Christy put a question in the chat. If they are supported by Bywater, will they be upgraded automatically? So Bywater does warn us when they're doing upgrades. I think that the schedule is, they said the test servers were coming up early May, first adopters were coming up in mid-May, and then they'll start upgrades in June, I think. That's what I heard anyways. If anybody else has other info, feel free to share.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything more specific than that. And that matches past behavior.
I brought that to my users group and they're like, no, heck no, we're not having that upgrade in the middle of summer reading. So we're gonna try and push ours to August because it's too much of a stressor for too many people here.
Todd called and talked to me about it, and I think we agreed on the 24th of June for us. So right in the middle of summer reading, but you know, I don't do summer reading, so who cares?
The argument there that I've always heard is either we're landing it or they're landing it in summer reading and hurting all the public people, or they're landing it at the end of the spring semester and hurting all the academics.
For us, it's the school library. It's better to get it done either. It's not a good thing to do during the first 2 weeks of the school year for my school libraries. So I'd rather do it in June when they're off and they can come back to a whole new version, or, you know, do it, you know, sometime during the school year when they're not not the beginning of the school year, not the end of the school year.
As a former school librarian, they really appreciate that because the first 2 weeks of school is like terrorizing because everyone's new, no one knows what's happening, everyone's changed something.
Well, and for our schools, they send me a spreadsheet that has all of their student data, and I import that into Koha, and I don't need to be doing that in the middle of an upgrade too. You know, that's bad, not good for me either. And we do have one community college, and it's the same, they're on the same schedule as the public schools, and they don't need that the first week of the school year either.
Christy, did you have
Your
any other
community
upgrading
college,
questions?
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Does your community college do where high school students can get college credit?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
think so. They're a community college in a town of like 1,500 people that's, you know, 40 miles from the nearest city of any significant size. So they're out in the middle of nowhere.
Andrew, I heard your question. Thank you. I haven't really studied it enough. I'm on the what the enhancements are going to be for 2211. But does anyone know, are these going to be major enhancements or just slight changes?
It is a major release. So the ones where the version number changes, so like 2211, 2305 when that comes out. Those are the major releases. So there will be new features, new enhancements, like big changes. The general Koha upgrade, like community goal, is that any new feature that gets introduced is introduced in such a way that it does not change behavior for any existing user. But, you know, everybody with their camera on can make a face about how accurate that statement it has been over time. Like, that's the goal. But things will change. Some behavior will change on you. the idea is, that like the day after you upgrade, everything works exactly the same unless you go flip some of the new switches. See how
I just put a link to the release notes for 2211 into the chat box.
Bywater has always done a series of blog posts and webinars and stuff as they get closer to that release, pulling out the features that they think libraries are going to be really interested in or have a lot of questions about. They won't cover everything out of those release notes, but they'll hit what they think is most important.
They always miss the one that turns out to be the most important.
Yeah.
That's usually the tradition, is the one thing that staff are going to complain about. That's the one thing Bywater forgets to cover in their training. What was I just going to say? I was going to say something else, and I forgot it because I was making a joke about Bywater. Oh well.
Well, there's a pause. I have a quick question about whether people have any system settings or global preferences that they have found has really helped them with clearing daily holds queues.
When you say clearing holds, do you mean finding the books that are out in the stacks that need to go on the hold shelf, or taking the things that need to come off the hold shelf because the hold is expired?
The first one. And
Okay.
Thank you, Juliet, for your comment yesterday. That was helpful.
The setting I found the most helpful is just to turn the holds off. That keeps it really clear.
I don't know that we'll be able to do that.
That actually happened to us this week. We had a random hold get placed without a hold pickup branch and broke the holds queue system.
What sort of things are you struggling with, Christie?
I think it's just, we haven't gone live yet, so we're just rethinking how we do holds now and whether or not that can be improved for everyone. So it's just do you guys, how do you format the print list? Like, do you make a paper copy? Do you have people go around with, a device to do the holds clearing or holds pulling? Those kinds of things, or like, is there a button I can check in Koha that helps streamline that process?
Are you a single library, or are you like a consortium group of many libraries?
It's not a consortium, but it's a lot of branches, like 27 branches.
27 branches of one library. Wow. Where are you?
Cuyahoga County in
Okay.
England.
The things, when I managed, I used to be the circulation manager for a library that had 7 branches that was part of a consortium that had 48 locations.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that many of the libraries in that consortium, specifically in my library and the 7 branches, one of the things that we did is we wrote a report to generate the holds list in such a way that it did not have any identifying patron information on it.
Okay.
So that we could print that off, and it became a volunteer job. I had this, different volunteers that came. One usually came in the morning and one came in the afternoon, so that we could print the hold list and give it to a volunteer, and it didn't have any confidential information on it. And then they would go out and search for the holds, and it was a fun job. Volunteers loved it. And then once a week or so, somebody would go out and try and find the things that the volunteers couldn't find. But as far as, the things that I would take into consideration, particularly if you use the built-in holds queue in Koha and the way that it prints out doesn't match like where things are in your library, if the order of it, doesn't match, doesn't make it easy. If people are going from one room to another room and back to the first room and then to a third room and then back to the second room, back to the first room, that gets really frustrating. So if you can find a way to make the holds queue into a report that prints in an order that makes sense for the people searching for things, that can be really helpful.
And that is real doable data-wise.
Yeah.
Like that data is easy to grab and format however it is most helpful to you. So really, kick Bywater to do it.
Yeah, we use a ODBC connection. I import it into or I run it live from Access, and I have that formatted really nicely. Yeah, Koha, built in, I was just realizing the queue does not offer any kind of real built-in organization. It just spits out things, and I don't know what order it defaults to, but
There's a in the table settings, you can set a default sort order now.
Okay.
So ours is set to call number, and
Yeah.
that puts things pretty much. We do use the vanilla queue, like we're not using a separate report, and you can hide the patron information in the table settings now. There's a lot of, that's where I would go if you're looking for settings to customize the queue, is the table settings under administration.
Okay.
And they've gotten better. The default interface has grown a lot. It's still like you can hide the patron information from that screen, but then it's pretty easy to show again. And so I don't know where I would land on giving volunteers access to that page with just the column hidden, but it is real easy to configure it to print without any identifying patron information.
Yeah, we never gave volunteers access to the system, but when I started using Koha, there was no way to get that patron information off of the screen.
Yeah.
So I just, that was one of the first reports I ever built. And maybe, I don't know, one of the last. As in, I built that one and I've rebuilt it like 500 times, but I know I just rewrote it like a couple of months ago.
Has there been any, like, how about printing hold slips, like the actual label that you put on the item when it goes on the shelf? Any tips or tricks there?
If you've got multiple branches, there are ways to that hold slip is printed in the notices and slips tool. And there are ways using template toolkit to create a slip that will say that if the item needs to be shipped to a different branch, it can spit out a slip that just says ship this someplace else and doesn't have any confidential information on it. And then there's, when it gets to the destination where it needs to be held, to print it separately so that it says hold it for this person at this location. And you can do a lot of things to that. You can, if you have a self-service hold shelf, you can just have it print like the last 4 digits of the barcode number and maybe part of the patron's last name. They're eminently flexible on the things you can do, but you do have to go in there and kind of make those changes. And if you're a Bywater customer, you can ask for some help with that and they can come up with a way of doing it. I even have at one of our libraries, and we use the standard Epson receipt printer. And instead of printing the text in this mode, it prints it so that the slip comes out. All the text prints at a right angle, so it comes out as a different shaped piece of paper. So there's all kinds of things you can do with that, but it does take a little bit of skill in knowing how to program that.
And it does expect you, this may be what you're imagining, Christy, but it expects you to find the book, check in the book, and that generates the slip that goes in it on the hold shelf. There's not a great way to like print your 20 hold slips and use those to tell you to go what to find.
Right. Okay.
That would theoretically be doable via a report though.
Yeah, it's doable. I've done it.
It'd be kind of a lot of fiddling, like building a structure that is not what Koha expected or intended.
That's the funnest part about Koha, is you can
Yeah.
build things that Koha doesn't expect or wasn't intended to do. It's awesome.
It won't always bite you in the butt immediately.
I've always wanted Koha to have some sort of dashboard where if a hold is, a hold request has come in, it just spits out a receipt and you just go by and grab it and grab the book.
So at one point, the Mississippi Department of something, it's a Bywater partner. They're a closed stacks archive, and they're set up so that as soon as somebody places a hold, their system spits out a slip as like a pull slip. But it's a really different model, and I like deep in your Koha, there's a system preference that is reserves need returns that asks when somebody places a hold, does the item need to get checked in to be on hold? And if you want to make your Koha work really, really differently, you could go flip that switch. But that like removes the whole idea of checking in an available item to fill a hold. It's just if your thing is available and I place a hold on it, as far as Koha is concerned, it's immediately on the hold shelf, which would not work for most of us. Do any of you use, I know Bywater has jQuery that makes it so anytime a circulation page loads, if there is an unfilled hold, a like box pops up and jiggles on the screen and makes itself really annoying to get your attention.
Like something that came in the Dropbox and you check it in and it says there's a hold or something different.
Something that would be on the holds queue. So something that Koha thinks is in the stacks available, but should be pulled for a hold. I know there are a few smaller libraries that are just set so anytime any page in the circulation module loads, if there is a hold that needs pulling, it pops up a reminder to tell you right then.
Oh, wow.
That sounds like a
pretty aggro
Jason
approach.
thing.
Yeah.
I didn't do that one, but yes, I know how to be obnoxious.
If it's a JSON thing, if you don't pull it after 20 minutes, little skulls appear on the screen too, right?
I'm trying to be more positive about things, more confetti, less skulls, unless they're in the confetti.
We don't have that, but Christopher and I did a demo of, putting something on the homepage that shows you when the holds queue, how many things are in the holds queue. We don't do that, what you're talking about, Andrew, because we've got, 50 libraries and the ranging from, 80,000 items to 4,000 items. So that would not work for us.
Yeah,
I also
popular
remembered
here.
what I wanted to say earlier. Is that if you're interested in 2211, the Monday minutes from Bywater Solutions, they're already talking about the enhancements that are coming up in Koha 2211.
Thanks for all that input.
Yeah, that dashboard item, the on the home page that George was talking about, we put that in after talking about that, and that's become really popular with staff. They really like being able to see, oh, we've got a bunch of holds available and waiting to be pulled. So it really keeps them on top of it.
The next thing that I want to do that's similar to that is how many holds have you had on your hold shelf for more than 10 days? To put that somewhere on the front page, because we've got libraries, they're only supposed to keep them 7 days, but there are some that have been there for months. So,
and can we rig it to an air horn?
Probably. I'll warn you there, George, like the dates get tricky when you're trying to do that.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, look at suspensions, look at future date holds, that sort of thing.
I think those dates are getting a little less weird because we're starting to save a system expiration date in addition to a patron defined not needed after date.
Yeah,
Yes.
I pushed for that. It was weird because it was being traded out, and if you reverted something, you lost their some specific information that the patron gave on that, and it expired holds inadvertently. It was really weird. I'm glad they're separating that out.
It looks like the bug to allow different or holds on different types of things to expire after different periods of time has stalled out again. It's one of those hold bugs that I'm anxiously waiting for. Number 8367, if anyone else wants to also anxiously wait for it. And this would be like most of our things we want to sit on the hold shelf for a week, but our hotspots we would like to sit on the hold shelf for only 3 days. And there's not currently a way to do that.
What's the bug number again?
8367. A nice old bug. coming up on its 11th birthday.
4 digits, that's nothing.
I was interested to see that 2211 is releasing 2 different features that sounds awfully similar, but they're not. It's the volumes and the grouping and the what was the other one? It's
What are we calling them now? Groups and bundles.
bundles. Yes,
Group
that
as well.
didn't confuse me at all.
Yeah, there was some conversation of those in the Bywater partner Slack yesterday. And it is, so item groups take several distinct items that are all circulatable by themselves. And really the assumption is that all of your items in a group are copies of the same thing. So,
Just in different formats, maybe.
or not even
Or
that
different
exactly,
editions.
like the original use case was like DVDs. We've got a bib record for season 1 of Game of Thrones. On that bib record, we've got 15 copies, and each copy is split into 2 items, discs 1 and 2, discs 3 and 4. So you make all of the 15 separate 1 and 2s a group, and all of the 15 separate 3 and 4s a group. And then your patron can place a hold on the group that is disc 1 and 2 and get the first 1 and 2 that comes back, or the first 3 and 4. They don't get stuck in that, like, I have to either just place a bib level hold and hope I get the right part of the season, or I have to place an item level hold on a specific copy and hope that I get the one that comes back first. So that's groups. It's holds where you're going to get the first of a defined group of theoretically identical items. Bundles, on the other hand, are taking multiple distinct items that are assumed not to be the same thing and smashing them all together under one barcode so they can all check out together. So that's like, we've got a book and a stuffed animal that live in a bag together and they get checked out as a unit. But someday we might want to split them apart and circulate them separately.
That's too forward thinking.
They're both good ideas, and it would have been awesome if they had come out in 2 separate releases.
The grouping thing sounds cool. I haven't seen it demonstrated or seen what it looks like on the user side. I'm curious as to what it looks like and if it's pretty straightforward or not.
I can show you if you're interested, because we actually
Sure.
have it.
I would love to see it.
Hold on 1 second. So this is actually our custom code that's finally being adopted into, I guess, Canon code. Here, let me show you.
Bye, George.
So this is we use AspenCat. This is what it looks like. So here's your Game of Thrones, our audiobook here. So we have holds part 1 and 2, or hold part 1 of 2 or hold part 2 of 2. So if you placed a hold on this, it would ask you to log in, type in your information. I think that's my password. There we go. I can place my hold, and then it puts it on all the circulating barcodes for part 1 and 2. And then if I did it for this one, it would be all the circulating barcodes for part 2 of 2. Or we use this a lot for not only DVDs, but travel books. So if we have like Fedora's Paris 2021, 2022, and 2023, patrons can pick which version they'd like to have.
So what does that look like on the staff side? And then also, what does it look like when you're actually grouping those things together?
Okay, so the staff side looks like this.
And all the items in a group need to be on the same bib, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this, well, it's not a great bib, got a lot of withdrawals. But here we have our volume, which is what determines which part it gets put on. So volume 1, 2, 1, 2. If these were circulating, then it would go, to any of these items. Let me just. Oops.
Rebecca, do you remember, would that column be labeled volume on a new Koha install, or is it named volume just in your Koha?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what it's called now. I probably shouldn't show the screen because it probably has patron information on it. But that's what it would look like on the patron, let me go back to this one here. So if I was placing a hold here through Koha, and I went to update my hold, oops, sorry, not update my hold. I'm only working on half a screen here. So if I want this patron here, my testing card, then it's the same version. If you pick part 1 or you pick part 2. And then you just place the hold, and it does the same thing. And then when you're looking at the holds, it will tell you here at the bottom, part 1 or part 2 or version 2021 or 2022. So I'm excited to see what this is going to look like in 2211. Because we've had this for a long time. Well, since we started. But I am excited to see what it looks like.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
It looks like community Koha just calls them item groups. So the tab says item group instead of volume. If you want to see, I can share this real quick. This is just default sandbox on current master, and I turned on the system preference to enable item groups. So now when I go to a bib, I've got an item groups tab where I can create a group, put a display order, edit that group. Not much to change there really. I think, yeah. Since I have a group and the thing's turned on, if I select an item, I can put it in my group. And I could do multiple things at once from there. And now I've got an item group column. So yeah, not particularly different from what Rebecca's got. Slightly differently labeled.
Andrew, do you know if that changes the table they're stored in?
That's a fine question. Let's find out. Probably.
I would imagine there's a grouping field and then a table that defines what those groups are separately.
Yeah. There's a table called item underscore groups and a table called item underscore group underscore items.
Okay.
So you'll have some reports to correct probably.
Yeah, we have I think it's volume something table right now. So yeah. That's good to know. Thank you.
Have you all seen the extreme fun of tab autocompletes on reports in master? It's the coolest thing. So if I'm typing a report, which table would you like? And then also if I'm like listing fields, I say items dot, and then it suggests to me all of the fields in the items table.
Neat.
And it is neat. And even if I like give my items table an alias, then I say I dot, it remembers that and auto like completes from there. It's not going to save anybody who doesn't already know what things are named, but when you've got half a name, it's very nice. Yeah, I agree. I also want it now. It'll be fun.
That seems too convenient. I'm gonna have to turn it off.
You suck, Jason.
It'll improve my productivity too much. I can't.
Yeah, my fun thing is this is what, so all those reports that currently don't work because I don't know how to fix it from the old tables, I should wait for the 2211 because then it'll give me the nice little drop down list.
What I really want, what I hope for in the future is when I'm writing a report, it will show me where I've left off a parenthesis or bracket or whatever, because that's what gets me in trouble all the time. It's like, I didn't complete this right. And you have to go and hunt. I have to copy it over to a notepad that actually does that and then copy it back. You know, it shows me my mistakes.
At least it helps with quotation marks these days with the color coding. But I agree, like parentheses and brackets and things, it could be much better with.
So I've got a question, and this is just, it's been off and on every once in a while. And I used to have a report that showed me what was causing it, but now that doesn't seem to be happening. But in the transfer to receive tool, I'm getting a 500 error, and it usually happens with one specific branch. And normally it was, you know, there was no item type selected on a item record that had been set to in transit. But I have a report that pulls those and there's none on there. And I've even looked, you know, I've tracked down to see if there was, you know, no items, no location for the in transit, no barcode in the item type, and no item type selected. Those are the three things that I was thinking of, but I still can't find the reason why. Anybody have any ideas?
And I think your impulse to look for a missing bit of data is good. It is probably some required field in either one of the items or one of the transfers themselves that's missing.
I keep going to Bywater about this, but it's like, you know, this is something I really should be able to solve on my own.
It'd be great to solve it on your own. If there's a log that is telling anyone specifically what the missing bit of data is, Bywater has access to that.
Yeah.
And theoretically, that is getting logged somewhere. In the plaque logs, hopefully are spitting out an error that says this field was undefined, and that's why our database action failed.
Yeah.
There's a bug about transfers to receive and 500 errors. It could be that. And that's talking about like something you probably can't touch or fix. A piece of data they have to touch on their end, I think.
Oh, yeah, that'd do it. If the item, if you've got a transfer in your system and the item that transfer used to point at has been deleted. Yeah, it might be worthwhile just like going to reports and doing select all from branch transfers where, trying to remember that data structure, where like there's not a date arrived or a date canceled. So like that transfer is still open and it's going to whichever branch you're getting the error at. That's not a huge table. You could just kind of visually skim through it and see, is one of those missing a data point that everything else has, like an item number or a destination branch.
You said it's happening with a particular library too. You might want to check to see what their, you know, workflows are, because something might be happening in the workflows where it's causing that to reoccur with them.
Yeah, that can be a rough fishing expedition, but when it pays off, it's very nice. Tell me what you do.
It's funny, it's usually this one branch. It starts this one branch, and it's like this branch gets the sniffles and the whole district gets a cold. So it just kind of like cascades out. So
And there probably is some like underlying workflow thing there that they do something weird at that branch.
And then they tell the other branches about it behind your back, and then they all start doing it. I don't have experience with that at all.
We found this great new workflow that saves us 20 minutes at the expense of some action that we don't know why we ever did it in the first place and probably isn't important.
I'll talk to, there's one gal that always finds this issue, and I'll ask her what she's doing, see if there's anything there.
I mean, if it is the bug that Jason linked, that should be real clear. Look at those transfers, and either there will not be an item number in the branch transfers table, or there will be an item number there that is no longer in the items table.
Yeah, I got a report that I'll probably just start adding all the fields to see if there's any blanks there. So
Well, we're well over time and we've lost several people. Any final questions?
Hi, just want to say hello to everybody. I'm new here.
Hello, welcome.
And I was wondering, since I'm pretty much new to both Linux and Koha and what would be some of the resources for somebody who's just starting out in addition to the actual manual? Something that would be really simple and showing all the steps of both installation and upgrades and parameters that I need to use to get a working installation of Koha.
So your microphone cut out through some of that, but what I gathered is that you're new to Koha and you're looking for installation and like configuration help.
Yes, so it's basically zero experience, zero budget, zero support from the IT department.
I don't have a ton to offer you. We tend to be a little bit more on the user end rather than the like, this is the system administration special interest group, but we're, yeah, more like administration of the installed system rather than of like the server or the installation itself. I'm inclined to refer you to, I would look to the Koha community, like the global Koha community. They have a mailing list. I would check there and see if what answer you can get. There usually are people on there who are good about answering more sort of installation technical questions. There is also an IRC channel where a lot of the developers hang out, and that's a good place to get, yeah, more technical help. Beyond that, I'm trying to think what sort of online resources to point you to. There's some in the community wiki. And that's
I muted you because there was feedback beta, but you can feel free to unmute again if you want.
And good, you said you're already on the main mailing list. Looking for information about IRC. There we go. But yeah, the IRC channel is the best like chat venue to find folks at. IRC can be a little onerous to get set up. Oh yeah, that YouTube channel that Rebecca pointed out is good. I've seen good resources from them, and they're I think a support company in India, but they do tend to get a little more back-end technical in the things they talk about.
The last Koha Con, I feel like there was a presentation from someone there.
But yeah, those are the things I would point you to. I hope they are helpful. I'm sorry I don't have more direct experience to offer you.
That's okay. I'll start digging. Something is sure to turn up.
Well, with that, I'm gonna cut us loose and you can go forth and do library stuff. Right.